Happy Monday. Thanks for tuning in to DeProgram with Ted Rall and John Kiriakou. I'm Ted Rall. That's John Kiriakou over there.
Hey, everybody.
Nice to see you, John.
Good to see you, Ted.
Hope you're staying warm on this very frosty Monday morning.
I'm trying. For the first time in my life, I've been using an electric blanket, and it has saved me. And it's so cold. And I live in a rental house, a rental townhouse, where all the other townhouses in the neighborhood, it's like 3 cul-de-sacs of 8. They're all spectacular. They all sell for $1 million, $1.1 million. Mine is the only one of the 24 that has never been updated. The windows are warped. My electric bills are outrageous. You feel like you're standing in an open breeze.
Oh, man.
Oh, it's not good.
No, that's not good at all. Well, hopefully it's going to improve a little bit better. It's 5 degrees here, so nice and brisk. Real feel of minus 25 or something like that this morning. Anyway, I wasn't outside. Fuck that. Anyway, it is Monday, February 9th, 2026. Please like, follow, and share the show. We're going to bring in producer Robbie West just for a little bit of housekeeping. By the way, Robbie, welcome back. Hope things are doing better on the home front, and wanted to have you talk a little bit about why people should come over to Rumble. And also, I just want to remind everyone, if you were here Thursday or Friday, you saw that John and I really need Robbie. It's not the same without him. And part of the way that we make that happen is we ask the listeners, which every single month you guys have risen to the occasion. We're almost there. It's a little frustrating. We need $1,000. Where are we at, Robbie?
I don't know. I dropped it, but we're close.
Okay, so we just need a couple $100 more.
I think we were like 192 or 198 away, something like that.
Yeah, it's super close. It's not bad.
So basically, if we can just get that closed out today, that'd be great. We won't talk about this again until the beginning of March again. So please, I'm going to go ahead and put up the URL for what I call Robbie Aid. It's go to GoFundMe, search for DeProgram Robbie. And for anybody who's like, look, it is begging, but hell, it's also it's a job. I mean, Robbie works for us. He's not just here for the hour. There's a lot of back end production on this show. All day long that we end up touching base with him about. And so it's a bigger thing, and we really appreciate you. Just take our word for it, please. Otherwise we're going to end up, using the show to justify that. Robbie, can you explain a little bit about why people should watch us on Rumble, and then maybe let us know if we have an ad?
Yeah, we do have an ad. I'll go ahead and do this part real quick. First of all, I want to just thank everyone that sent me messages about what's going on. I really do appreciate it. The kind words were very encouraging, and we'll go into a little bit more detail about what's going on with that later on in the month. But I just want to say, first and foremost, thank you to everyone that reached out. As far as Rumble versus YouTube, it comes down to really just 2 things. One, Rumble pays significantly better. Rumble pays based off of almost like a rating system. So the more that people watch, Rumble pays you directly based off of your watch hours, whereas YouTube pays you off of your ad revenue. So to kind of put that down into English, for every nickel that YouTube pays off of an ad, Rumble pays about 94 cents just for you watching, whether you let the ads roll or not. So that's the biggest difference. On YouTube, if you skip an ad, John and Ted don't get paid. On Rumble, you just watch. If you're watching Rumble, if you have Rumble Premium, you get no ads at all. Plus, you also get content that is behind Rumble's paywall that, frankly, is just simply too spicy for YouTube because of YouTube's community moderators. By the way, we love y'all. Continue keeping YouTube safe for everybody, except for truth tellers. Lastly, YouTube has tried to strangle this show in the crib not once but twice. Rumble never has done that. Rumble lets John and Ted say what they want to say. Rumble encourages a vigorous debate of ideas, which you have on this show. And on YouTube, you got to dance around because you don't know what the rules are. I don't think that YouTube knows what the rules are. So if you want adult conversation, you come to Rumble. That's where it happens. Also, Rumble directly reports the show with the ads that y'all are about to see, like the one I'm about to put up for John and Ted right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Robbie. All right. So with that, we'll put Robbie back into backstage and we'll talk about what we're going to talk about. As always, we love your questions. So please put them in, if you're watching live, into the YouTube or the Rumble feed. We're going to talk, what we have up on deck is this sort of Washington Post story, very interesting, about sort of what they call sort of a revival of the 19th century when anarchists were dropping American presidents right and left, and foreign leaders as well. And now there's been some high profile school shootings and other mass killings and other acts of political violence or non-political violence by people who don't fit neatly into a box like left-wing, right-wing, Islamist, or whatever. These are people who basically investigators are kind of describing as nihilists. Super interesting. We'll get into that. Big news in Japan, where the Liberal Democratic Party, which basically has ruled Japan pretty much consistently since World War II, and had been seen as on the ropes until recently, has been clearly revived by Sanae Takaichi. She called a snap election, won a landslide victory. So she's riding really high, but she's also kind of a very promoting aggressive militarism and pushing power out, threatening the Chinese over Taiwan and so on. So
everything that a Japanese leader should not be doing.
True.
Because to China and South Korea, World War II happened like a couple of weeks ago. They have very long memories.
Yes, that's true. And then last but not least, Israel really seems determined to close the deal and finally annex the West Bank. The cabinet there just approved a deal, an agreement that would allow settler colonists in the West Bank to buy the land that they're currently encroaching on. I'm not really clear on who would be selling it to them, since it doesn't belong to the Israeli state. It belongs to various Palestinian landowners. But anyway, couple of quotes that are notable. The finance minister, Smotrich, said, "We will continue to bury the idea of a Palestinian state." And Israel Katz, defense minister, said, "We are anchoring settlement as an inseparable part of Israel's government policy." So these are not people who are looking to make peace with the Palestinians.
That's right.
So where shall we begin, or should we do some questions? Let me do this ad. Robbie just put it up before it times out. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now it's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. Only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin free, and mold free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. Frother, strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler, $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. Okay. What do you want to do first?
Oh, let's get some of the little ones out of the way. So there's not much more to say about Japan, although this is troubling from a military point of view. Remember, Japan after World War II was not permitted to have an army, not permitted, because they used their army to invade and occupy other countries and to commit atrocities. And for many, many years, for decades, the Japanese people really supported the idea that Japan should have a national police force, but not an army. And then things began to change. And now not only is the right ascendant in Japan, it's victorious. And it looks like Japan is rearming itself, and it's going to be a major military force in East Asia.
So, I mean, John, to me, the difference here is between so Germany has reemerged as they're a member of NATO. They sent troops to Afghanistan.
Yes.
They restarted to reassert themselves as a military power a number of years ago. Not aggressively, but certainly, but and not, I mean, obviously they're very aware of their history. To me, the difference is that the Germans have, tried to atone and have apologized repeatedly for World War II. Whereas the Japanese have not. They, they've never issued a formal apology or really taken full responsibility for what they did. And they also even continue to spin World War II in their textbooks, as basically being kind of like well, we lost, but we shouldn't have lost kind of thing. I mean, Is that the difference here? Is that why we should be a little more wary of Japan than we are of Germany, or is there more to it?
I think so. And, you talk to, this is just incidental, but you talk to Germans, and in Germans, there really still is this national shame over the Holocaust and Japan's actions during World War II. You don't get that from Japanese.
No. I mean, there are certainly, look, when I used to work for a Japanese bank, and I definitely had some colleagues who were, they were born in Japan. They'd come from Japan as adults, and they were planning to go back to Japan after the rotation, and they were very ashamed of what, especially, particularly of what Japanese troops did in places like Eastern China, the race of Nanking and stuff.
That's right.
But yeah, it was a mixed bag. I mean, it's kind of like not really settled in Japan that imperialism of the 1930s was wrong.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly how I see it.
And it's also a very racist society, right?
It really is. Like, it's shocking.
It's shocking.
If you don't go into it knowing it, it's shocking how racist it is.
I mean, very quick story. I was told, when I went to Japan, that they were so racist that you could make it work for you. So, one time I was poor and I was wanted to take the bullet train to Hiroshima. It was hundreds of dollars each way. I just sat brazenly in some guy's reserved first class ticket. He should have gotten the conductor and kicked me out, and I would have just gone back to coach. But the guy looked at me and I knew, and I had been told this, and I'd been there long enough to see this would be true, that basically he wouldn't have sat there even if I'd gotten up.
You had polluted it.
Exactly. Yeah. So therefore,
oh my God.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to stretch out and enjoy the view.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah. I mean, that racism of, that sense of racial superiority that they have, I think that's what makes it so terrifying. I think the Japanese many of them still think they should be running the Pacific,
Oh my God, yes. It's funny. There's this meme that's going around social media. It's a map of Europe, and it's a poll from, I think it's the Pew Charitable Trust. It's the percentage in every European country of citizens who think that their culture is superior to all other cultures.
Oh, that's great.
And Greece is by far the highest number. It's 89% of Greeks think that they're superior to everybody else, which I can assure you is exactly the way Greeks feel. But at the same time, social media is flooded with videos of little Asian kids speaking Greek and little African kids speaking Greek, and Filipinos speaking Greek, and there are Greek schools for orphans in Kenya and Madagascar, and everybody speaking Greek. This is not an arrogance based on race. It's an arrogance based on history. And so they don't care what race you are. They don't care who you marry or what skin tone your children happen to be. If you consider yourself to be Greek, that's good enough.
So it's it's cultural.
It's cultural. Yes.
That is very, very funny. The thing is, I don't know about you, but I'm going to watch the rise of Takaichi with trepidation.
Yeah, I'm worried. Yeah.
She's definitely bigly on Team Trump, which means she might think that she has the U.S. at her back no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think this is a power vacuum. I think this story is more about a power vacuum in Japan on the left than it is about, the Liberal Democratic Party being super popular. Just got to say. I mean, although the Japanese like her, and also part of it might be hey, we're gonna let the ladies have a chance. She's the first woman prime minister, and it's against such a sexist society that there's two kinds of Japanese. The Japanese that women speak isn't the same. They have different inflections, different tones, and even some different words. Mm-hmm. So All right. Well, so shall we do any more of these, or should we just get to the questions?
Can I do just? I'm probably the only person who's interested in this, but I gave, I should say, 2 interviews over the weekend to Greek outlets. A Greek colonel assigned to NATO was arrested and charged with espionage for spying for China. This is highly, highly unusual in Greece. Not that somebody's been arrested for espionage. That happens quite frequently. It's almost always spying for the Russians. What's unusual is that this was the Chinese. There is very little, there was very little evidence when I was still in the game that that the Chinese gave 2 shits about NATO. They didn't care about NATO. Now, apparently, they care very much about NATO because they were trying to intercept NATO's communications and to decrypt it. This guy, he's a colonel. And as I said, he immediately confessed. He said that he took an undisclosed trip to China a year ago. The Chinese recruited him there. They were giving him 5,000 to 15,000 euros for every classified document he brought out. He communicated with them on a separate cell phone, completely unencrypted, terrible tradecraft. Nothing was done clandestinely, just right out in the open. And this guy's going to spend much of the rest of his life in prison.
Wow.
Anyway, it brings the Chinese into an espionage story in Europe where they otherwise haven't been before.
So we're going to see more of this.
I think so, yeah.
Well, before we move on, speaking of Europe, a couple of top-ranking European officials are dropping like flies due to their Epstein connections.
That's right.
In France and in Belgium. What do any thoughts?
I think that this is going to start to spread. And ironically, the United States appears to be the only place where nobody's taking these Epstein revelations seriously. I said this last week. I'm going to say it again as I pull this little piece of lint off my sweater that I can't seem to get a hold of. But I said last week, this could bring down the Keir Starmer government. Mm-hmm. Now, there are 2 different pieces of evidence indicating that former Prince Andrew and Peter Mandelson both gave Epstein classified documents from the British Ministry of Defense. If so, that would be a violation of the Official Secrets Act, which in the United States would be a violation of the Espionage Act. They're far tougher than we are with these violations, these classified document violations. And not only is Peter Mandelson likely going to prison, but this could be enough to cause backbenchers in the Labor Party to force a vote on leadership. It could be the end of Keir Starmer in the next couple of weeks.
It does kind of feel like that. He has the smell. He has the smell of the Liz Truss cabbage on him.
I was going to say the same thing. He's lasted slightly longer than the cabbage, but not much.
No. And I mean, and I guess now it's official. We're never going to see the other half of the Epstein files.
I don't know, man. I mean, I spent a good bit of the last week going through the Epstein files, and I found several John Brennan related documents that I'm going to try to make some hay over. But I don't know, man. 3 million documents. People are still going through them, and there are millions left. I mean, the guy never got off email. It's incredible. Right. But another thing too, Ted, even though the statute of limitations has expired for just about every crime committed against the victims, the child victims here in the United States, that's not to say that the people who were engaged with Epstein and the people committing those crimes shouldn't be publicly shamed, that they shouldn't be ruined, like Peter Mandelson, who's of course a UK national, but the general counsel for Goldman Sachs and all these billionaire businessmen who thought it was perfectly okay to associate with a child rapist, they need to be called to account.
I mean, John, that's the thing with Roman Polanski, those allegations date back half a century. And, when people say, it was LA in the 70s, it was a different time, culture was different. I'm not quite as old as that. You and I are not. But there's some truth to that. That rings true. Culture was.
I don't know what happened to Ted. Well, I'm going to keep going then. The culture was different, but that doesn't make it right. in the case of Roman Polanski, that girl was what, 15 years old at the time.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is,
and there are still charges pending against him in the United States. Right. He hasn't been back to the United States since the 60s.
He's living in exile. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I guess the thing is, though, but laws have changed, for example. I mean, the age of consent has gone up in most states since then. But the things we're talking about with Epstein, that's not very long ago, right? No. I mean, it's like we're talking about 10 years ago, basically, 10, 15 years ago. I mean, is it credible to say, like, well, these guys, they kind of like, they're old school. They grew up when it was kind of like not that big a deal to have a 15-year-old girlfriend.
It was never okay to screw children. No, sorry.
I'm just trying to like put that out there.
I know. You know, one of our viewers, I just saw it a second ago, Philip Blair says, Noam Chomsky, WTF. Exactly. I had this conversation with a friend of mine over the weekend. Neither one of us are friends with Chomsky, but we're, acquaintances where over the years we've exchanged emails. I never liked Noam. He's kind of a dick as a person, but 3 years ago he had a stroke. He's 97 years old. He hasn't been able to speak in 3 years. But when he still could speak, and somebody asked him, Professor Chomsky, what's up with you appearing in the Epstein files? This was from the first tranche. Mm-hmm. His response was, go fuck yourself. So, where's the contrition?
Or at least the explanation. I mean, like the thing is to be on the left, I think, is part of left-wing ideology, I think, is to believe that elected officials and public intellectuals owe the people an explanation when they're viewed as having strayed.
Yeah.
I do. I think accountability is a left-wing value, or it should be. All right, shall we do some Q&A here?
We have lots of questions. Yes.
All right. Alex asks, I'm at the age when I get my news from memes. John, Ted, Robbie, do you watch memes? Can't avoid them.
Every day. I don't get my news from them. If something strikes me as interesting, I'll research it. I try really hard not to be taken in by falsehoods. I try hard. I don't always succeed. There are a lot of lies, but I do try to research things. A close friend forwarded to me a video of a bunch of LAPD officers arresting ICE officers in the subway. And I'm like, no. She's like, oh my God, look what's happening in New York. God bless New York. I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. So all you do is you take 5 seconds to Google, did NYPD arrest ICE officers? And the answer is no. It's completely made up in AI.
Yeah, so, I've gotten those too, and those are NYPD too. I mean, why do you think people would make those up? I mean, is it obviously they're trying to get the clicks, but it's obviously a fantasy that we have, right? I mean, it feeds into something that we would all like to see happen, or that many of us would like to see happen.
Yeah, but it weakens. It weakens all of us.
Yeah.
When people put these lies out there like that, I don't see what people hope to accomplish by other than just causing people to embarrass themselves.
Well, my biggest concern, John, about all the deep fakes and all that is that we're going to arrive at a point rapidly, and I mean like maybe within a year, where people just completely tune out of the news and the internet because they won't. It's like nothing. You can't just take anything at face value anymore. It's just a waste of your fucking time, and you're just going to say, "I'm out."
Yeah, and you know what the fallout's going to be. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is going to cease to exist. The Washington Post is going to cease to exist. We're just not going to be able to get news anymore from most of the current day go-to news outlets.
Democracy dies in doucheness.
You can say that again.
Borhenson, if you think about it, memes are just the current political cartoons. I'm not sure if Ted would agree. Actually, I do 90% agree. I mean, what is a cartoon? A cartoon is words plus pictures. That's it. What is a meme? Same thing. I think, a well-crafted political cartoon drawn by someone who lives and breathes politics and drawing every single day is obviously going to probably operate at a higher level, most of the time than like a meme that's just banged out very quickly. But I've created memes and seen and watched them go viral. So I mean, I definitely don't have anything against them. I think, you don't want to fight the wind. Elliot Covert recently watched Eyes Wide Shut in light of Epstein. Have you guys seen it? Do you have a favorite Stanley Kubrick movie? I have seen it.
I've seen it too.
So my problem with this movie, John, is not really the execution of it. My problem, it's kind of fascinating because Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were actually, their marriage was falling apart while they did it, and a lot of that apparently went into it.
That's right.
But my problem with this is that Kubrick was a notorious, almost to the point of fascist perfectionist who literally like made his actors cry. Like, take 112.
That's why Scatman Crothers quit acting. He said that there was one scene in The Shining where Kubrick made him do it 106 times, and he finally just sat on the steps and broke down crying, and he never acted again.
Kubrick was a lunatic. Okay. Yeah. Now that said, this movie wasn't finished, right? It wasn't. The editing hadn't been complete at the time of Kubrick's death.
Right.
I've got to think Kubrick would have never wanted that released.
I agree. I agree.
And for that reason alone, and I think it's like it's a shame to do that to an auteur, especially to his last film, because that's going to be the last thing you remember.
Yes.
My favorite Kubrick has probably got to be the Vietnam one. Oh my God, what's it called? Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. I have to say 2001. I've watched it 100 times. I watched it 2 weeks ago on a plane. It's just as great as it was the first time I saw it.
I mean, he is great.
He's great.
Sure. I've gotta say The Shining is up there.
I like The Shining
even though
very
Stephen
much.
King did not
hated it.
The way that it was redone. Yeah. But like, in I don't think it's telling tales out of school when you're talking about something from the 1970s. But basically the cook who is supposed to save the day in the book, and he does. And in the movie, you build it up. He's going to save the day. He walks through the door and Jack Nicholson kills him right there and then. And I'm like, that's the difference between a movie and a book, right? I mean, it's like the movie needs to build up hope and take it away. And that's the thing about Stephen King books. You and I were just talking about Stephen King a week ago. For decades, in every Stephen King book, the good guy always lost. Always. Right. And that's what made them so compelling. Yes.
So, somebody asked if at the CIA we viewed our recruited sources as traitors and held them in contempt.
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
And the answer is absolutely not. We really, really believed that we were the good guys. And so if we were able to recruit somebody and make them one of the good guys, we were all one big happy family. There were a couple of sources that I recruited who in normal life I would not be friends with, right? We would not have had contact. They were scumbags. In one case, he was a killer, like just a cold-blooded, stone cold killer. But 7 of the 9 people that I recruited over the years, I would love to be friendly with them.
So you didn't have that sense of like, sort of like, like the person who has an affair with a married person, and then they're like, well, they could do this to me too someday, right? I mean, you didn't have that sort of.
Oh, sure, and that's what vetting is all about. Mm-hmm. So you've got to polygraph them. You have to what we call operationally test them. I'll tell you, there was this one source that I had who I really, really liked, and because he was from an enemy country, he was recruited under special circumstances. Well, he was so reliable, I wanted to move him over to normal circumstances. It's a paperwork exercise. And as part of that paperwork exercise, I had to operationally test him. So I put a large surveillance team on him as he left his place of work, and they followed him to the meeting site. And the head of the surveillance team kept calling me saying, he's doing this, he's doing that, he's doing this, he's doing that. At one point he got in a taxi, had the taxi just pull over on the side of an 8-lane highway. And then he ran across all 8 lanes, climbed over the median, got in the cab on the other side and went the opposite direction, and then got on the subway and came to the meeting. It was it was very, very provocative in terms of a surveillance detection route. So when he got there, I knew exactly what he had done, but I said, did you do a surveillance detection route on your way here? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, walk me through it and tell me what you did. And he told me like to a move exactly what he did. And we were able to move him straight into the, yes, we can trust him camp.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he doesn't get run over.
I've actually run into sources twice. Once at an airport and once on the street. And it was, years. Well, in one case, it was 4 years after I left the agency. In the other case, it was, 20 years after I left the agency.
Did you just nod or can you say hi?
They came up to me. I wasn't really paying attention. They came up to me and it was big bear hugs and, oh my God, how are you doing? And one guy said, I can't believe you speak English. I can't believe it.
That's funny. He didn't know. FU said, thanks for the $4. Is it rational, Ted? It's not annexing, it's pillaging and destroying the West Bank. Well, I don't know if it's destroying the West Bank because they want to steal it and keep it for their own, right? I mean, so let's talk about the West Bank, John. I mean, I think this is a huge story. I mean, it's like obviously going to cause all sorts of major, it's a horrible, I mean, I want to be really clear. I think this is one of the most foul, disgusting things Israel has ever done. And that's a long list. And so currently there's Israel has chopped up the West Bank into these 3 areas, right? A, B, and C, where C is all completely controlled by Israel. B is jointly controlled by the Palestinian Authority and the IDF. And then A is exactly what you'd expect, only controlled by the Palestinian Authority. C is currently 60% of the West Bank. Everything else is basically chopped up into what they call Bantustans, and so now they're going to allow. Who's going to sell these settlers their land? I mean, I don't get it.
Well, there have been what are being billed as real estate seminars at synagogues in New York, New Jersey, and Toronto, where it's the Israeli government selling plots of Palestinian land, plots of land that the Israeli government does not own, taking money from would-be settlers and saying, great, have at it. It's all yours now.
I mean, and like, so the policy, here's the thing, right? I mean, the only solution here would be, honestly, probably military intervention, right? I mean, what's going to make the Israelis back off?
Yeah. The only thing that is going to make the Israelis back off is if the U.S. stands up. And there's no indication that we will, whether there's a Democrat in the White House or a Republican.
I have to think that this is the timing of this is that this is basically approved of by Trump. Netanyahu's meeting with Trump in 3 days. And there's this whole plan to redevelop Gaza. And, just like we always suspected, the Israeli intention was, although they haven't solved the ethnic cleansing problem, they've only managed to kill 400,000 out of 2.2 million people, still got 1.8 million Gazans. It's going to be hard to kill them all. And, they're not like in a hot war against Hamas the way that they were. So, I mean, but basically this seems to be, the whole world is just turning a blind eye to what Israel is doing. And they're just acting with total impunity. And they're, I don't see the light at the end of this tunnel. I mean,
and to make matters worse, Ted, I was talking to a Middle Eastern prince last week. We talk almost every single day, and we were talking about this issue. And I said, the Saudis have to stand up, and the Emiratis have to stand up, and everybody has to stand up. And he goes, you don't get it, even after all these years working on the Middle East, living in the Middle East, you don't get it. We hate the Palestinians, he said. We don't care what happens to them or their land. He said, we would rather do business with the Israelis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
there it is.
Why do they hate the Palestinians?
There are a couple of reasons. it's always been bubbling along. It really came up to the surface when Iraq invaded Kuwait, because when Iraq invaded Kuwait, first of all, backing up, in the Gulf, the Palestinians were the middle class. The Palestinians were the lawyers, the engineers, the doctors, the professors, the teachers. And then when Iraq invaded Kuwait, Yasser Arafat had a choice to make. Either he was going to come down on the side of the Kuwaitis who had been, invaded and annexed and were being slaughtered, or he's going to be on the side of Saddam Hussein. And he chose Saddam Hussein.
Wasn't Saddam Hussein also sending money though, and helping to rebuild demolished Palestinian houses and stuff?
Barely. I mean, it was all going into Arafat's pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why Arafat made the decision that he did. He was a billionaire when he died because he took all this money that was meant for the Palestinian people.
Scoundrel.
And then the Kuwaitis and the Saudis are like, whoa, wait a minute. We've been supporting these people for decades, and they just turn on us like this. Everybody's out. Everybody's expelled. And most of those Palestinians have been replaced by Egyptians. It's the Egyptians now that are the middle class.
It seems pretty as damn close to hopeless as it can get.
Yeah, it is. It's hopeless.
Pink Lady, I wonder if yes, we do read the chats. Not all of them, but Robbie.
We try, but man, it's hard. Yeah,
it's hard. There's a lot. Manya the Cat not looking forward to an armed Japan. They managed to starve 1.5 million people here within a year. Question for both of us from Pink Lady: do we believe what Stephen Greer has said about the government hiding evidence about aliens? John, can you send me a signed photo of yourself before you're too famous?
Sure, of course. I have to find one. What was the first part of the question?
Stephen Greer, aliens.
Yeah. People have asked me that over the years. I don't know, to tell you the truth. I mean, if there is evidence, it's being tightly held at the Pentagon. But I honestly don't.
What do you think about those, like 5 years ago when the U.S. Air Force released those videos of UFOs?
Mm-hmm. There was one that was leaked in September that is dramatic. It's two F-18s following a UFO, an orb, a silver orb off the coast of Yemen. And they're talking about it back and forth. The camera never leaves the orb. And they're given permission to fire at it. It was a Hellfire missile, Sidewinder missile, one or the other. And you see the missile hit the thing, and the missile just bounces off, and the orb just changes direction by 90 degrees and just keeps flying. Incredible.
I mean, look, there's definitely evidence. Is there proof? There's not proof,
right,
but there's evidence. John, how long do NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, last for intelligence agencies? Image, if a private contractor's I think there's a misspelling here. If a private contractors, how long do they last for intelligence agencies? For life,
or until the operation or the compartment is declassified?
I like this question. Isn't Israel's claim on that area only religious? Weren't the Canaanites there first? Yeah, basically it's religious, right? I mean, like if you look at social media, there's tons right now of Zionists posting, archaeological digs that show that Jews lived in that region thousands of years ago. Okay, so there's no doubt that Jews lived in that area thousands of years ago. That's true. There's also no doubt that they were gone for 1900 years. They were their population was reduced to low single digits of percent for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? And so it's kind of like saying that, so you were someplace, then you were gone, but that gives you the right to come back 2,000 years later. I mean, it's really some weak tea.
And the thing is the vast majority of them are Europeans.
Right. They're not the same people.
They're not the same people.
They're just, ethnically, like if you did 23andMe for them, they're not the same.
No.
Fun fact, British East India Company still exists to this day, and you could even buy products off of their website.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
I did not know the second part. I knew the first part. Chirati, John, why don't those princes you're in contact with help you get a pardon, or at least a couple million of those oil dollars? And what would you do if you ran into Obama?
Working on it.
Okay.
10 years ago, I would have given you a different answer about Obama. But in this case, I would just pretend he wasn't even in the room. I have nothing to say.
What would your answer have been 10 years ago?
I'd tell him he was a monster who wrecked the lives of countless people. He was a murderer who should be prosecuted.
Well, I still believe that to be true. Josh Buck, are there people still actually working on tracking and removing spies in the United States? Is it possible to achieve? Will we ever be free from foreign control?
So the FBI's counterintelligence division, that's literally all they do, is to try to root out spies and to remove them or prosecute them. It's an ongoing, never-ending job because more and more spies are coming here every day. There are more spies in Washington, D.C. than anywhere else in the world. And it's not possible to win, to root them all out, unless you want to be North Korea.
It's whack-a-mole.
It's whack-a-mole, yeah.
Thoughts on the Truth Social post with the AI Lion King spoof? Is it really evidence of Trump's racism? Insensitive, incompetent, reckless are better words that come to mind.
It was amusing, but no. I just don't think that stuff that's made up advances anybody's argument.
Which part being made up?
Well, like for example, the deep fake, or not a deep fake, the AI generated Truth Social post that looked like it was from Trump saying that he took down the Obama ape meme because it was insulting to apes.
But what about the meme itself? Do you think it's evidence of Trump's racism?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think so too. And the other thing is, I gotta say, we don't really know. I mean, I think he probably, some part of him didn't have a problem with it when he put up, but it's very weak tea to say, I didn't watch the whole thing. I only posted the whole thing. I only watched the beginning and I didn't see that part. And then also to blame the people who posted it. It's like, it's under your name. I mean, somewhere in a dusty banker's box is Truman's old "Buck Stops Here" sign that used to be on the president's desk. You should dig that up, Mr. President, because it's like you're the captain of the ship. Even if someone did this without you knowing it, you should take the fall. Bicycle Pro 12345. Thanks for the $8 donation. Ever do spy work with the Aussies? Would be interested in knowing what you thought about our intel service, if you ever did.
I never did anything operationally with the Australians. I briefed them a number of times. We have, they're Five Eyes country, so they're literally sitting there in the building. Their primary focus is, as you might expect, is China. And that was never my thing. So worked in proximity with them, but almost never directly. They're quite good. They're quite a good service. Very good service.
Clovis question. Whatever happened to Ted's cat? He's here. And he just doesn't come around all the time. If you have cats, you don't control them. Sky, have you heard about the conspiracy that Diana knew about Andrew and Epstein and they had her killed before they could out it? Obviously just a conspiracy, but curious to hear your opinions. LOL. I say there's nothing to that at all. Yeah. I mean, I think the Diana thing was exactly what we all think it was.
Yeah.
Let's see. A man just froze to death in my city in the cold. America leaves his people behind. That's freedom and democracy for you. BlackRock, Israel, warmongering, and their profits are more important. True. We are now 16 dead in New York City from the latest cold.
We're 4 in Washington, and everybody's celebrating like that's kind of some kind of victory.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
John, what's the closest you got to having a star on the wall?
Twice. Once in Athens, where my next door neighbor was killed instead of me, and then the Revolutionary Organization 17 November said in their manifesto that they set out that day to kill me, but I was driving an armored car and they knew that I was armed. That saved me. And then a year later in a Middle Eastern country, but we knew several days in advance that there was going to be an attempt to kill me. And so we were able to turn the tables.
How will the Illuminous Catter, thanks for the $20 Australian, how will the current release of the files impact the U.S.-Israeli relationship with it, now seeming more obvious it was a Mossad honeypot operation?
Totally.
Wondering if you could talk more about your experience in Israel.
Yeah, it was totally an Israeli honeypot operation. And I don't think anything is going to change. Nothing. I mean, I've been out there shouting from the rooftops that the Israelis, spy on us. Alan Dershowitz calls me names, and the Israeli foreign minister's political director called me a noted anti-Semite because of it. And it's true. They're still out there spying on us. And nobody cares.
Pink Lady still wants a signed headshot of both of us for hopefully they don't get so big and forget about us. Well, we'll get big. We won't forget about you, though. MT16, Mike in Nottingham, thanks for the 20.
Thank you, Mike.
Keir Starmer's chief of staff has resigned yesterday over the ambassadorial Mandelson appointment. It leaves Starmer not long for the political world. Agreed. Okay, let's do some of the donations and we'll get to this nihilism story. Huxlex, thanks for the $10. It's Mossad power amplified and infiltration reduced by the Katsa network.
I don't know what that is.
Nor do I. Okay, I was hoping you did. I was bluffing there. DC8828, thanks for the twofer. Is Israel's mission an extension of the Crusades? No. Crusades are about Christianity.
Yeah. And frankly, not just Christianity killing Islam, but killing other Christian denominations like the Orthodox Church.
Yeah, like when they got to Constantinople, right? They saw Christians wearing funny hats, and they thought like, oh, these are apostates.
Yep,
idiots. Well, they were peasants.
Yeah.
Ray, thanks for the $1. How about a private contractor's NDA with a private company? Seems like different than the agency rules, like the one that worked for Brennan at GSG. Hers expired years ago.
Yeah, there's a difference between a non-disclosure agreement and a secrecy agreement, I guess. I lumped them both together because when I was at the agency, they were one and the same. But yeah, I mean, so long as there's not classified information involved, I suppose an NDA can have a time limit set on it, or people violate the NDA and nobody bothers to, file a lawsuit.
Hamhawk, thanks for the 5. Hey, I was happy to see you teamed up with the All Family Pharmacy, but I'm a little disappointed your promo code wasn't John Loves Drugs.
I know, right? Because johnlovesgold.com for your free report.
Una Remen asking me what's a good source for political cartoons. Can you suggest some publications to follow? Publications don't really run political cartoons anymore, but I would suggest go to syndicate websites like gocomics.com and comics.com. They have a massive array of political cartoons. My stuff's in Go Comics. Miss Moth, thanks for the 5. Huge fan of the show. Thanks for all you do. Does John know he's a meme on TikTok right now? LOL, have a great week.
Yeah, my niece forwarded it to me the other day. Tens of millions of hits. I was telling this story that when I was on Diary of a CEO a few weeks back, Stephen, what's his name? Barrett? I forget his last name. He asked me to tell a story that I had never told before. And I told this story, and I was kind of animated during the telling of the story. I talk about this woman. And I said, she was so ugly. It was like she was the ugliest woman I ever encountered in my life. Like she had come off the wall of Notre Dame, kind of ugly.
Gargoyle.
With a mole right here and this giant hair coming out of it, et cetera, et cetera. And they clipped that and they released it as a short. And then somebody took it and they made it very, very funny. With a mole.
I have to watch that, By the way, I was just triggered by a story, like when my roommate and I got caught throwing shit out of our dorm window. And and we both got summoned to the housing office in college. And
so
we basically were like, we have to, John, you have to have your story straight, right?
Absolutely.
If you're both going to be questioned. So Chris and I had a deal. I would call him as soon as I got out, let him know exactly what happened, and then he would know what to say. So I come out and I go, he goes, okay, what's up? And I said, she's the biggest woman I've ever seen in my life. She must weigh 500 or 600 pounds. He's like, yeah. But what did you say? I'm like, you don't understand. She's huge. I mean, I literally spent the entire time like, wah, 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 wah. I couldn't hear a word she was saying because I was trying to figure out how she got through the door. I was wondering if they built the office around her. I literally just was kind of like, my visual spatial is excellent. And I was kind of like, how'd she get in? She was that massive. She was the biggest person I'd ever seen. Like, even like when you're like looking at the Guinness Book of World Records, like she was gargantuan. She was the housing director. And I literally didn't remember anything that we said because I was just so like distracted by her massive weight. Anyway, so Chris goes like, fuck you, Ted. Hangs up, goes to the meeting. He calls back and he goes, oh my God, she's fucking massive. I have no idea. I've never seen anything. I didn't even know that was possible.
Oh my God.
Anyway, don't meme me. Don't meme me. Okay.
I'll admit to you that I am addicted to the TV series, My 600-Pound Life.
Oh, I would be interested in that.
I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about stuff like that. I mean, I think the heaviest person, if memory serves, was like over 1,000 pounds, right? Like in the Guinness book. And I was like, how do you live? How do you even survive?
There was a guy who ended up beating that, Steven something. They put him in the hospital to ensure that he would lose weight before the surgery, and gained 120 pounds in the hospital. And they put hidden cameras around, and his wife was coming in with like giant pizzas and buckets of chicken. And he ended up being almost 1,200 pounds, and then he died.
Busted. Oh, wow. That's sad. It's horrible. Let's talk about this nihilism thing. I mean, it's not like that big a deal, but it's super interesting, right? So, I mean, I have a theory about it, but I want to hear your thoughts first. I mean, basically, there's been a bunch of killings. The Washington Post is reporting about this, how investigators are saying increasingly there's the new ideology that they're hearing about is sort of a non-ideology ideology. Basically, I hate everyone. Everyone sucks. All parties suck. I want everyone to die. And I just want to, blow up the system, the system, capital S system. And this isn't about trying to bring about communist revolution or bring about the Islamic caliphate or anything like that. This isn't about, fuck Bernie Sanders or fuck Donald Trump. It's about this sort of just like, I mean, like, we're not talking about someone like Luigi Mangione.
Right.
He had a message that although it seems like he struggled to come up with a message, it seemed like he kind of wanted to kill someone and then came up with decided what he was going to do.
Yes.
But anyway, what do you think of this? It does remind, I mean, it's not fair to the 19th century anarchists to say that they were nihilists. That's not really true. But I mean, what's your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think we're entering kind of a weird period. Although we may have experienced this before. We may have experienced it in the late 60s too, when people were doing hits for reasons that just appeared to be inexplicable. But I agree with you. I'm not sure that Luigi Mangione, did what he did allegedly for a political purpose. I think he just did it. And I agree with you. He tried to come up with the political purpose later.
Yeah. I mean, and I wish that wasn't true.
And Charlie Kirk as well. People were just losing their minds over, it was Antifa and it was this and it was that. And it's a Mormon kid. His parents are Republicans. He was just kind of fucked up.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, I would say in his case, maybe like a misbegotten urge to defend his girlfriend, his trans girlfriend.
That's right.
Right. Like, this, viewing Charlie Kirk as transphobic. I'm now dating a trans person. I'm going to man up for her, whatever. My theory is that part of what's going on here is that we have politics without we have parties without politics. In the 20th century, if you were interested in political violence, you could join like a revolutionary communist party that was striving to overthrow the state. There's nothing like that anymore.
No.
There's no Red Army faction. There's no Weather Underground. There's no way to channel that. I'm not going to say into something healthier, but there's no way to channel it into something that's organized.
That's right. That's right. In the 60s and the early 70s, there were revolutionary organizations like the ones you cited. There were some fake ones like the Symbionese Liberation Army. Remember them?
Yeah, Patty Hearst.
Mm-hmm. That really just wanted to rob banks and tried to make it political after the fact.
Yeah. There are people who just really want to kill people and just want to steal money. And I watched the new Leonardo DiCaprio movie. Yes.
Day before yesterday.
What do you think?
I loved it. I thought it was terrific. I'm taking my vote for the Screen Actors Guild thing very seriously. I'm watching every single movie. Some are dogs and the others are friggin' brilliant. But this was one.
I wonder if the director of One Battle After Another, if he was looking, is Paul Thomas Anderson? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If he filmed this, did he know about the ICE raids, or is that just a coincidence that it kind of looks like the ICE raids?
If he didn't know, he was clearly anticipating them.
Channeling it,
channeling it, because it's almost dystopian in the immediate future. Like if this is futuristic, it takes place 6 months from now,
and of course it's based on a Thomas Pynchon novel from a number of years ago. So it's got all those kind of fantasy elements, which I found it. I got to say, I found it a little mannered for my taste.
Yeah. I liked it. So far, it has my vote for best ensemble.
Wow. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Good enough.
But best picture has to be Bugonia so far, and best actor, the guy from Frankenstein.
I've got to watch both of those. I have not seen either.
Awesome.
All right. Well, that does it for today's show. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to support Robbie. GoFundMe, DeProgram Robbie. Let's get to $1,000 and knock this out of the park. And thank you very much for your help. And stay tuned. TMI show with Manila Chan and myself coming right up after this. And that be all. You and I, John, will be back tomorrow morning at 9:00 a.m. Eastern time. Stay tuned. See you later. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.